Welcome back to the Anti-Meta Meta Club. This week's race C has a very dominant meta car, but luckily I have a very good anti-meta car. Let's get into it. Your anti-meta car of the week is the Alpha 4C. It's not quite as powerful as the meta car, but it is more nimble and it's lighter, which means that a tire strategy that the other cars struggle with is absolutely gold for this car. I managed to get a 147.5, though there is a 147.4 and I can actually see a 47.3. Taking even a quick glance, you can see exactly what the meta car is, and the other MR cars seem to do good, but luckily we do not have the all-wheel drive meta anymore. Or is it lucky? As we move down the front straight, you might notice that I am swerving kind of in the middle of the track, and it's not because there's some kind of secret sticky line or something. I was just looking at my ghost. As you approach the first braking zone, you're going to look for the 100-meter board, and right before that is when you're going to hit the brakes. Once you get all the way past the barrier on the inside to the right, you can start turning in. You can also look for the tire marks that are on the curbing that you just hit the brakes on. You can entirely miss that big sausage curb on the inside, or you can straddle it, but straddling it is more risky. Once you hit the apex, you can squeeze full throttle and continue steering to the right until you get to this little patch of dark marks in the middle of the track right here. Once you get past that, you can then switch directions, and if you time it correctly, you actually do not need to lift off the throttle at all for this left-hander. Once again, you can straddle or completely miss the sausage on the inside. I like to miss it because you can very easily slide the car, and that will cost you precious time. On the right, you can see where the green part of the track meets the grass, and it's at that point, actually right before that, I want you to switch directions. And again, you don't want to lift until afterwards. In fact, you're going to stay full throttle until you get closer to the apex and only lift as much as you need to get yourself closer. You want to hit the apex right before this shadow. This game does have dynamic time, so if you do a ton of consecutive laps, you will end up seeing that shadow move. So I do want you to pay attention to this orange bit in the distance. You want to hit the apex just before you're pointed at it. If you feel the car understeering here, you might be tempted to try to steer more. You can steer more to a point, but you might actually induce more understeer. You actually want to unwind the steering wheel a little bit, and then you can gently try to find the grip by turning and unturning just a little bit as you track out. As long as you don't go all the way on the green, you should be fine and you won't get too much understeer. As you approach the next braking zone, I just want you to pay attention to this bridge. Right before you go under it is when I want you to hit the brakes. Immediately trail braking in, I want you to really dive for the apex. Just try to get to the inside as fast as you can, and as you approach it, downshift to second to get it to rotate, then back up to third and back on the throttle. You should pass that F on the inside barrier just as you're about to hit the apex. As you can see, I missed it, so there is more time, but as long as you get the car rotated and get on the throttle early, you should be golden. As we approach the next braking zone, I want you to look for this structure beyond the fence. Whatever that is your braking point. As you get past that, you're going to hit the brakes. You can also look for this kind of arcing tire mark on the curb. Right in the middle of the arc is where I like to hit the brakes. Brake heavily and immediately turn in as you downshift to third gear. Start trail braking, get down to second gear, and you want to quickly come off the brakes. Of course, not suddenly, but very quickly. And as soon as the car starts to rotate and you get up on that curb, get on that throttle. If you get a little bit of oversteer, it's better than if you wait too long. If you get some understeer, you might find yourself off the track, so be very careful with your throttle application. Once again, for the next braking zone, you're going to put your outside tires up on this curb. Essentially, as soon as the entirety of your car gets on the curb, then you can hit the brakes. As soon as you get to full brake pressure, I want you to start trail braking in third gear, come off the brakes and back on the throttle, continuing to steer to the left as you go over that apex. As long as your left tires touch the red and white part of this curb here, you're going to be totally fine, and then you can guide your car to the outside of the track right here. As you approach the next corner, I want you to take note that this is not actually going to be a braking corner. Following the shape of the curb here on the left, you're going to start turning in just a little bit earlier, and as soon as you get past the curb, you're going to lift only enough to get your nose to hit this apex just after that sausage curb. As soon as it does, continue steering to the right and get fully on the throttle. Once again, you can keep just your right tires on the white and red part of the track, or the curb, I mean, and you should be totally fine without a penalty. Just before the 100-meter board on the barrier to the right is this dark tire mark, and as soon as your front and rear tire go on top of that tire mark, that is when I want you to hit the brakes. Brake in a straight line until you get underneath this metal structure and then start turning in. You're going to get down to second gear and then gradually come off the brakes. As soon as you come entirely off the brakes, you can add more steering and get on that throttle as soon as you hit the apex. Again, a little bit of oversteer is preferential to waiting too long, but of course you don't want to understeer off the track.
Cutting this left-hander enough that your right tires are barely on the curb, you're going to look for this dark part of the track, and you're going to aim it so you start turning right before it and then lift off as you touch it. Adding a little bit of brake in conjunction with hitting that second gear, you want to come entirely off the brakes, add more steering, and then get back on the throttle in third gear. The car should continue rotating, and you do want to apex after that sausage. As you can see, I missed it, so once again, we can find a lot more time right there. Avoid touching the sand at all costs. As you approach the next corner, you're going to see these tire marks that kind of go the direction of where you want to go, and as soon as you hit those, you're going to follow them in. You do not need to lift whatsoever. As long as you don't hit the cones and your left tires stay on the curb right here, you should be golden. Continue to steer, making sure that you, of course, don't go beyond the red and white curb here either, and then prepare to straddle this yellow sausage. The final corner is just a bit of a trick. You've got to make sure that you're straddling the sausage curb and your right tires are still touching the red and white curb. When the entirety of your car is over the yellow sausage, then you're going to start braking, and you don't want to turn in until your left tires miss the end of the sausage curb. As you can see, I did not miss the end of the sausage curb, but that just means I have to stay on the brakes a little bit longer. If I was able to turn in and completely miss it, I'd be able to get on the throttle even earlier than I did there, which sets you up for a faster next lap and also helps you finish this lap faster. Like I said before, I can definitely see a 0.3. I bet even a 0.2 is possible with this car. If you couldn't tell by now, I am very sick, so please bear with my voice. I'm going to try my very best to continue talking and not cough, which has been happening a lot. You just don't know because I've been editing it out. But anyways, do not put your tires beyond the curb. I don't think that you should put your tires on the green part that is beyond the red and white curb, because I do think it increases your braking distance. It also might give you dirty tires. I'm not sure. I've seen some people do it successfully here and like at Red Bull Ring, but every time I've tried to do it, it's made me slide, so I do not suggest it. It's the same here. You can put your tires on the curb, which a lot of people actually suggest you shouldn't do, but I have luck with that. I never have luck anymore with putting my tires beyond it. So yeah, try not to put your tires on the green part. If you watch my inputs, you'll see that this car can rotate a lot once you come entirely off the brakes, and when you get on the throttle, you can induce understeer, but the car should continue to steer as long as you're careful on the throttle. This corner is really tricky. A lot of people try to straighten out before you get on the throttle. You can get on the throttle and continue steering to the left before then switching to the right. And for this one, there's no braking needed. You don't need to brake whatsoever, even when your tires are really dead at the end of the race. You just need to lift with the right timing. If you find yourself braking in a similar place and still missing this apex, you're probably braking for too long or you're just braking too much. Again, this car really likes to rotate when you come entirely off the brakes, and it has a tremendous capability to rotate. I completely missed the apex here, but I don't think it's because I turned in wrong. I think it's because I just used too much brake and didn't come off the brake in time. Like I mentioned in the breakdown, you don't need to lift off here. You can actually turn in a little bit earlier, which means that you can carry more speed by releasing the steering earlier. And for the final corner, you can turn in later, meaning that you can miss that sausage curb, get off the brakes earlier, and get on that throttle earlier as well, which of course leads to a faster time. There are essentially two main strategies that are possible to do with this car, and technically you could do them with any car, but I do believe this is the only car that can really do the second, which is the superior strategy, effectively. If you've read the regulations for the race, then you know that you are required to take a pit stop, but you're not required to do anything with the tires. But it is a good idea to take tires if you find yourself shredding the tires, or if you're pretty much in any car except this one. Most people will probably be pitting on lap 5 or 6 to take tires. I know some people are pitting on lap 7, some people are trying to undercut on lap 4, but if you want to consider the very fastest possible way, pitting on lap 5 is probably the best way to go. Since the race length is an uneven amount of laps, then you have to have a stint that is longer than the other one. And the very best way to do that is to make sure that your second stint is the longer stint. And that's because you're going to have less fuel weight to damage the tires on your second stint. Essentially, having that little bit less fuel will damage the tires just a little bit less, and that'll make it a little bit easier for you to have a better, longer stint. When you're thinking besides the tire wear, you want to consider the traffic. If you can do anything to get out of traffic or to avoid traffic, then you're probably going to find yourself having some success. If you plan on pitting lap 5, but there is someone that you know you're faster than directly in front of you that is also pitting on lap 5, or if you see multiple people really close together pitting on lap 5, you might be able to pull off an overcut and avoid battling or avoid having to pass anyone who is slowing you down. Anytime you have a flexible pit window and you don't have to pit at a very specific lap, then you can use that to your advantage to avoid any kind of things that will slow you down, which is mainly just traffic. If you're actually spending your time qualifying, then you probably don't really have to worry too much about the people in front of you slowing you down. This isn't always the case, and there are a few reasons why that might be. Firstly, some people are only fast when it comes to qualifying. There are a large amount of people who can qualify really fast by setting lap after lap and just getting pretty lucky with putting their optimal times together. Sometimes people also choose to use a car that is good in time trial but is not good in the race. Some people also just don't know how to change how they drive when it comes to actually having tire wear as well as fuel consumption. And so if you don't find yourself in the back of races very often, if you do qualify, but you have any of these situations that I just mentioned, then you might also benefit from knowing exactly what to do when it comes to differing pit strategies. Now, as you can see, Rodrigo in front of us was extremely desperate to maintain his position, and it was at that moment I should have just gone into the pits and chosen the different strategy. But for some reason, I was dead set on trying to pit and take tires in the middle of the race, just like any of the other cars. And as you can see, that is going to be very detrimental to me. It took all the way to the end of the second lap to get in front of Rodrigo, and he was defending so much that I actually lost another position to Wojciech, who was behind us before. I want to stress that he did absolutely nothing wrong. He was definitely over defending, but that isn't illegal or anywhere near against the rules. It's just not always a great idea when it comes to racing people who are very clearly faster than you. Battling takes up time no matter what. And when you're battling people who are faster than you, it's pretty much just inevitable that you're going to lose the position. On top of that, it just bunches up the people behind you, and if you're already struggling with losing positions, you're probably just going to lose more and more positions, which is evident in the fact that he is not even in the top 10 anymore. Adding to all of that, he was also in one of the worst cars for this race. That car's tires will not last. It will not have good pace in the first place, so he is just going to, unfortunately, continue hemorrhaging time. Because of all that, you can see that the last lap we set was a 151.3. The fastest lap so far is a 149.7, and we should actually be in the mid 48s for, at the very least, the first 6 or 7 laps. Not that it matters very much to him, but it has cost me a tremendous amount of time. That was just 3 seconds of the last lap, not to mention how much time on the very first lap we wasted trying to battle. Battling with Wojciech was just fine. Wojciech is a very, very fast driver, and he's always very clean. We did not lose very much time. Neither of us lost very much time trying to battle each other, and in the end, I think he just let me go to make sure that we didn't lose too much time. However, when it came to Mr. Enzo right here, despite the fact that I had a run, as soon as I moved out of his slipstream, I no longer had the power to get in front. He continued trying to defend, and luckily I was able to outbrake him and get all the way in front. While I do think you can be just as fast, if not faster than a Citroën driver in this car, it's going to be very difficult, especially on the straights, to either defend against them or pull off a pass, as you can see. Trying to pass on that straight showed off one of this car's weaknesses, but I'm going to show off one of its strengths. I'm in a worse line. I have to turn tighter. I braked later, and I was still able to come out of the corner and get on the throttle earlier than that Citroën. Part of it definitely has to do with the difference in our driving abilities, but also I do not believe many of the other cars would be capable of pulling off that pass cleanly, just like this car did. Jumping all the way to the end, you can see that I am going for one more position after I had tried to battle and get another position just before that. I was able to maintain 6th place, but I am a full 8.3 seconds behind Velasa, who pit on lap 1 with the same car. The difference is he didn't take tires, which is a 2 or 3 second difference, and he didn't have to worry about traffic the entirety of the race. I'm going to show you a race where I did the same thing. Starting from the back just an hour or two ago on one of my European accounts, as you can see, I'm actually going to lose a position right out the bat because, just like I mentioned before, the Citroën is more powerful than this car, and there's pretty much just nothing I can do to not get past there. I couldn't stay in the slipstream because the people ahead were just a little bit to the right, which actually gave the guy passing me the slipstream, and even though I tried to brake really late and stay on the outside, he braked so late that he essentially just took that line, and I bumped him just a little bit. But even though I knew I was going to lose that position and there's nothing I can do about it, this is still going to end up being a much better strategy, and I don't really have to worry about that guy. Coming out of the pits, you can see that 2 people decided to go in the pits on lap 1, just like I did, but both of them happen to be in the Citroën. Also, shout out to Cars with Doosan, who said hi and mentioned the Anti-Meta Club, my bad. Hi, Cars with Doosan. Thank you very much for watching, and it was good racing with you. The ultimate goal of this strategy is just to try to completely avoid any kind of traffic and any kind of battle as much as you possibly can. Starting in the back means that I'm most likely going to have to battle some people, but if you were to set a time, start anywhere near the front or even in the middle of the pack and pit on lap 1, pit at the very beginning, you probably wouldn't have to deal with much of this at all, assuming that you just have really good pace. The only time you really need to worry about other cars is if you happen to be next to a car that happen to take tires and they have fresh tires while you do not have fresh tires. But it doesn't really matter because these tires are going to last the entirety of the race. Now, as you can see, I went for the pass. I felt like I was clean. I made it very obvious I was going to go for the pass, and he tried to turn in as if I wasn't there. Since we made contact with the sides of our car, it was pretty obvious that I wasn't just driving directly into him, but I think that he saw it a different way because he immediately tried to punt me off the track. Luckily, it didn't work. I was able to get on my brakes earlier than he anticipated, and he, in fact, lost another position. But anyways, I digress. As you can see, I was able to hit a 148.4 with no slipstream, and I was able to maintain a mid-48 for as long as I didn't have traffic. Other people are probably going to struggle to get that kind of lap, even with the brand new fresh tires in the middle of the race when they have less fuel. So as you can see, this car, despite the fact that it isn't taking any kind of tires, and despite the fact that you're not taking any tires, can still maintain good pace throughout the entirety of the race. What you probably don't realize is the person directly in front of us was actually the leader of the race. The pit delta here is about 30 seconds, so as you can see, the person who's currently in the lead is at about 30.7 seconds. So as long as I can get a little bit ahead of that, if I can close the gap between myself and that person, then I essentially have solidified second place already. The fact that this car does not lose pace, even though the tires are getting worn, means that by going in the pits at the very beginning, or if you're leading going in the pits at the very end, you can just avoid traffic, set your own pace, and it's going to be better than anyone who has to deal with any kind of traffic or with degrading lap times because of their degrading tires. Jumping all the way to the end, as you can see, Couch Driver has picked up yet another penalty, and it doesn't look like I'm quite close enough pull off a pass. As you can see, he's very smart. He's taking the defensive line, and there's not really anything I can do, especially with the fact that my tires are just degraded enough that I can't quite hit a mid 48. You can see from my last lap, I was still in the 48s, and that's definitely going to be better than most people. But if you look back, or if you think back to when Raphael decided that he was going to turn into me and also run into me directly afterwards, if none of that happened, I would have had the win. So thanks, Raphael. You might just be clumsy, you might not really know what's going on, but I guess you should be pretty happy that you cost me the win here. At the end, I ended up driving off track trying to go too quickly, but this is just an illustration of the superior pit stop strategy that is really only possible with this car. I want to take a second to apologize for being on for 2 weeks. I had planned on only 1 week, but then when I got back home, it was too late for me to try to put together another guide. And luckily, I did get a lot of different content for more YouTube videos. I also think that I probably wasn't very clear, and my brain is kind of fuzzy right now, so I'm sorry if my strategy talks weren't quite up to par. I don't think they're as good as they usually are. If you have any questions, please ask me in the comments, and I will do my very best to answer them, but I hope it was clear enough and you can get something out of this guide. Thank you so much for watching, and I apologize for being on for so long. It won't happen again. Most likely. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, I'll be leaving you with a look at my current members, whom I love very, very much. Thank you.